I was fired and I asked my parents to let me stay for a month. My father laughed, "You're 33, unemployed, and miserable. This is not a homeless shelter." Mother only added, "We raised you, not your problems." A week later, they took my younger brother and his fiancée into my former room for free. I just nodded, thanks for the clarity. 6 months later, I made a decision that shocked them. Now they are begging, "Please don't cut us off." My name is Liam, I'm 34, and honestly, I never thought I'd find myself in this situation. For most of my life, I've been the responsible one in my family. You know the type, the kid who always did the right thing, avoided drama, never asked for help. That was me. But despite all my efforts, I always seem to get less attention. I have a younger brother, Ethan, 32. He's always been the golden child. No matter what he did, whether it was crashing the family car or skipping classes, my parents would just shake their heads and say, "Oh, Ethan's just so creative." And me? I was the one who came home on time, brought in good grades, found jobs, never asked for anything extra. If Ethan was the sunbeam, I was the shadow. Everything changed last month. I had a stable job for 8 years, nothing fancy, but it paid the bills. I had my own small, cozy apartment. And then, just like that, the company shut down. No warning, no severance, just gone. I found myself unemployed, scrambling, and panicking. I had some savings, but I knew they wouldn't last long. Rent, groceries, job hunting, it all hit me at once. Desperate, I did something I never thought I'd have to do. I swallowed my pride and called my parents. I wasn't asking for money. I just needed a place to stay for a few weeks until I got back on my feet. I thought they'd at least pretend to consider it. When I showed up at their house, my dad was sitting at the kitchen table, scrolling on his phone. I explained the situation, told them it was temporary. He didn't even look up. "You're a grown man, Liam," he finally said, laughing like I'd told a joke. "Unemployed at 34? What, you think this is a homeless shelter?" I turned to my mom, hoping for some backup. She just shrugged. "We raised you, not your problems," she said, as if that explained everything. I tried to say it wouldn't be forever, that I'd pay for my own food, job hunt every day. But my dad just snorted. Ethan never needed this kind of help. He always figured it out on his own. That was it. I snapped. "Ethan lived here until he was 28. You paid for his car, his college, and now you're covering his wedding." I shouted, my voice cracking with anger. My dad slammed his coffee mug down on the table. "Get out if you're going to start a scene," he snapped. My mom didn't even turn around, busy stacking clean plates into the cabinet. It was like I didn't even exist. So, I did the only thing I could. I grabbed my backpack and stormed out, slamming the front door behind me. I was ready to just let it go, chalk it up to my parents being their usual selves, pretending I didn't care. But a week later, I went back to pick up some of my old things from the garage, and that's when everything went from bad to worse. I walked in and I heard voices upstairs. Familiar voices. I climbed the stairs and froze. My old bedroom was completely transformed, freshly painted, a new vanity by the window, and there were suitcases in the closet. Ethan and his fiancée Olivia were setting up the room like it was their new place. I just stood there, staring, until Ethan noticed me. "Hey man. Long time, right?" he said, grinning like everything was perfectly normal. Olivia waved at me, smiling. "Do you want to see the new paint color?" My dad passed by the hallway, glanced at me without even stopping. "Ethan and Olivia needed a place while their apartment's getting renovated," he said, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. "So, it's not a homeless shelter, but it's fine for them?" I shot back, my voice shaking. He just shrugged. "They're getting married. They need help." My mom walked by with a stack of fresh towels. "We're just trying to help them start their life together," she added, like that explained everything. I stared at Ethan, who had the decency to look slightly uncomfortable. "Look, it wasn't my idea," he mumbled. "We just needed a place for a few weeks. You know how they are." "Yeah," I muttered. "I do." And then I left. But the thing that stuck with me wasn't just the room, or the rent, or the fact that my parents would rather help Ethan again than me. It was how casual it all was for them. Like I didn't matter. Like I wasn't even there. And that's when I realized I was done pretending it didn't bother me. After storming out of my parents' house that day, I ended up on my friend Mark's couch. It wasn't ideal. He had a small, cluttered apartment, and the couch had seen better days, but it was a roof over my head. Mark didn't ask too many questions. He just tossed me a spare blanket and went back to his computer. That's one thing I've always appreciated about him. He didn't pry. He just let me exist. For the first few days, I was a mess. Half-heartedly scrolling through job listings, eating instant noodles for every meal, and sinking into the spiral of frustration and anger. I couldn't stop replaying that scene at my parents' house in my head. The way my dad laughed. The way my mom just shrugged me off. And then Ethan comfortably setting up in my old room like it was the most natural thing in the world. But it wasn't just anger. There was this gnawing emptiness too. Like I'd spent my whole life trying to be the good son only to realize that it never really mattered. I wasn't their priority. I never had been. Mark was the one who finally snapped me out of it. One night, as I was zoning out on his couch, he looked over and said, "You know, you're not gonna fix anything just sitting here. What's the point?" I muttered. "They made it clear who they care about. So make it clear you don't care either," he shot back. "Stop being their safety net. See how they like it." His words stuck with me. He was right. I'd spent my entire life trying to be the reliable one, the responsible one, the one they could always count on. But when I needed them, they didn't even hesitate to turn me away. So I decided to do something I'd never done before: nothing. Complete radio silence. No calls, no texts. I wasn't going to play the good son anymore. And almost immediately, the messages started. First, a casual text from my mom asking if I could help her figure out why the TV remote wasn't working. I ignored it. Then another one, something about her laptop being slow. Ignored. A day later, she sent me a thumbs-up emoji with no context. I didn't respond. Next came Ethan. He popped into my DMs acting all casual. "Hey, man. Do you remember the Wi-Fi password at the house?" I deleted the message. Then another one. "Do you know where Dad kept the router manual?" I responded with, "Ask Mom." And that was it. It didn't take long for the cracks to start showing. My parents had always leaned on me for anything even remotely technical. Setting up their smart devices, troubleshooting the Wi-Fi, even helping with their online bills. They never learned because they didn't have to. They had me. Not anymore. Mark thought the whole thing was hilarious. Every time I get another panic text from my mom or a frustrated DM from Ethan, he'd just shake his head. "You're finally making them understand," he said. But it wasn't just about the tech problems. It was about the realization that I didn't have to be their backup plan. That I didn't have to be there every time they snapped their fingers. And yet, a part of me still wanted them to get it. To understand why I was doing this. But they didn't. Instead, they started complaining to other family members. My Aunt Carla called me, saying my mom was upset that I was punishing them. I told her what happened, how they'd kicked me out, how they'd given my room to Ethan without a second thought. She got quiet, then just sighed. "Well, you know how they are." Yeah, I did. Every few days, there was something new. Another message, another call, another desperate attempt to pull me back in. But I stayed firm. I needed them to feel it. To understand that they couldn't just treat me like an afterthought. One day, I was scrolling through Instagram when I saw a picture of Ethan and Olivia in my old room. My old room with the same curtains, the same lamp I'd left behind. Olivia had captioned it, "So lucky to have a place to call home, even if just for now." My mom commented, "So happy to help you two start your life together." I took a screenshot and sent it to my mom with no caption. She left me on read. Mark saw me staring at my phone and asked what happened. I told him. He just shook his head. "They're not gonna change, man. But you can." And I did. I stopped waiting for them to understand. I stopped hoping they'd suddenly realize how unfair they'd been. Instead, I focused on me. I updated my resume, started applying to jobs more seriously, and even reconnected with a few old friends who I'd lost touch with because I was always too busy being the responsible one. My parents kept trying to reach out, but I didn't respond. Not to their guilt trips, not to their half-hearted attempts to make me feel bad. I was done. And it felt good. For once, I wasn't the one trying to fix things. I wasn't the one they could dump their problems on. I was just free. At least, that's what I thought. The silence didn't last long. It was almost like clockwork. The more I ignored their messages, the more desperate they got. My dad, who never even texted me unless it was to remind me about some family dinner, suddenly became chatty. But it wasn't the kind of chatty you'd expect from a concerned parent. It was guilt-tripping, plain and simple. "You can't just ignore your family," Liam, one of his texts read. "We raised you better than this." I didn't reply. My mom wasn't any better. She started calling me directly, leaving voicemails that ranged from teary apologies to passive-aggressive lectures about family values. One day, she texted me a picture of a family photo from when I was a kid with the caption, "This used to mean something." I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was so predictable. Every time they wanted something, they turned to nostalgia. They tried to make me feel guilty for standing up for myself. Ethan, of course, was right in the middle of it all. At first, he tried the casual approach again, asking if I wanted to grab a drink and just talk. I ignored it. Then he switched tactics, calling me instead, leaving voicemails about how things were really tense at home and how mom and dad are struggling. I didn't care. Let them struggle. They'd made their choice. But then things started to unravel faster than even I expected. Mark and I were watching some dumb sitcom one night when my phone buzzed. It was a message from my Aunt Carla. "Liam, what's going on with your parents? They're telling everyone you've abandoned them." I stared at the screen, my jaw tightening. Abandoned them? I had been kicked out. I'd been the one cast aside in favor of Ethan and his fiancée. "They kicked me out, Carla." "Ask them that," I replied, fingers shaking slightly. She didn't reply right away, but I knew the damage was done. My parents were twisting the story, making me out to be the villain. And because they were so good at playing the victims, our relatives were eating it up. A few days later, I started getting more calls from numbers I didn't recognize. Cousins, uncles, even my grandmother called me, all with the same tone. That "why are you hurting your parents" tone. I tried explaining it a few times, but nobody wanted to hear my side. It was exhausting. But I refused to cave. If they wanted to play this game, I was done being nice. I blocked my parents' numbers. Then I blocked Ethan. I left the family group chat without a word. Let them deal with their own problems. They had made it clear I wasn't part of the family unless they needed something from me. Mark thought I was overreacting at first. But then he saw how relentless they were. How even after being cut off, they kept finding new ways to try and guilt me. Texts, emails, social media comments. It was like they couldn't accept that I wasn't going to just roll over and play the good son anymore. Then it got worse. I got a message from Olivia, Ethan's fiancée, out of the blue. She asked if I could come over and just fix a few things because Ethan's too busy with work. I almost dropped my phone laughing. Busy with work? The same Ethan who hadn't held a steady job for more than a few months at a time? "Not my problem," I replied. That seemed to set something off because a few hours later I got a flurry of texts from Ethan cursing me out, calling me selfish, saying I was ruining everything. I didn't respond. But I did hear from Aunt Carla again. She told me my parents were having trouble with their bills because I used to handle all their online payments. The water had been shut off for a day because they missed a payment. Good. Let them learn what it feels like to rely on someone and be abandoned. Let them understand that I wasn't just some convenient backup plan. But the more they struggled, the more frantic they became. My mom started showing up at Mark's place, banging on the door, demanding to talk to me. One time, Mark just opened the door a crack and told her he's not interested before shutting it in her face. Then they started trying to pull other people into their mess. My cousin Jasmine called, saying my parents told her I was going through something and needed help. Help? They were the ones who needed help. But I stayed firm. I wasn't going to be their safety net anymore. Not after the way they treated me. I heard through the family grapevine that Ethan and Olivia were struggling. Their renovation was delayed, they were running out of money, and they were fighting constantly. My parents tried to cover for them, but without me to fix their messes, it all started to pile up. Then I got a message from Ethan. "Are you happy now?" "Mom's crying every day. Dad's stressed out. Olivia's threatening to leave." Was I happy? No. But I wasn't sorry either. For once in my life, I was free of their manipulation. Free of being the disposable son. And I wasn't going back. I didn't think I'd actually get this far. Part of me always assumed that at some point I'd cave. That I'd answer one of their desperate messages, go running back, try to fix everything like I always did. But I didn't. I held my ground even when it got ugly. And it got ugly. The family smear campaign against me went full throttle. Relatives I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly knew all about how I'd abandoned my parents, how I was letting them suffer. They didn't know the truth. They didn't want to know. It was easier for them to buy into the story my parents were selling, that I was just a bitter, selfish son who refused to help. But the truth was simpler. I'd spend my whole life being the backup plan, the one they turned to only when things went wrong. I was their fixer, their problem solver. And the moment I needed them, they laughed in my face. So I let them struggle. I didn't answer their calls, I didn't respond to their emails. I blocked every new number they tried to contact me with. When Ethan showed up at Mark's place, banging on the door, I stayed in my room. Mark told him to leave, and when he tried to push his way in, Mark shoved him right back out. I got a new job. Nothing fancy, but it paid the bills. I found a tiny apartment barely bigger than a shoebox, but it was mine. My own space. A place where I didn't have to feel like an outsider in my own life. But even from that distance, I heard about the chaos. Ethan and Olivia's relationship was crumbling. My parents were struggling with their bills, and without me to fix everything, the house started falling apart. The Wi-Fi went out. The smart thermostat I set up stopped working, and they couldn't figure out how to fix it. The water got shut off again because they missed another payment. My mom even showed up at my new place once. I didn't let her in. I stood in the doorway listening to her sob about how I was tearing the family apart, how I was punishing them. I told her the truth. I'm not punishing you. I'm just not fixing things anymore. She tried to push past me, but I blocked the door. She screamed, she cried, she begged. But I didn't budge. When she finally left, I locked the door and just stood there, breathing. I didn't feel good. I didn't feel proud. I just felt free. The messages kept coming for a while after that, but they slowed down. Then they stopped. My parents must have finally accepted that I wasn't coming back. Ethan didn't try to reach out again. I guess he finally figured out that his charm wasn't going to fix this. Or maybe he was too busy dealing with his own problems. Last I heard, Olivia had moved out. I kept my life small. I went to work, I came home. I saw Mark sometimes, but I mostly kept to myself. I didn't need their drama. I didn't need their guilt. I didn't need them. But the silence wasn't as peaceful as I thought it would be. Sometimes, late at night, I'd catch myself staring at my phone, half expecting it to light up. Half wanting it to. Not because I missed them, but because I wanted them to finally understand. And then it came. A letter. Not an email, not a text, an actual, handwritten letter in a white envelope with my dad's shaky handwriting on the front. For a few minutes, I just stared at it like it might explode. Liam, I don't know if you'll even read this. I don't know if you'll care. But I want you to know that I'm sorry. Not just for the way we treated you when you asked for help, but for everything. For all the times we made you feel like you didn't matter. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even expect you to write back. But I needed you to know that I was wrong. Dad. I read it twice, then folded it up and put it in a drawer. I didn't cry. I didn't feel some rush of relief for closure. It was just a letter. But it wasn't the end. My mom texted me a few days later. Just a simple message, can we talk? I didn't reply. But she didn't give up. Over the next few weeks, she tried calling, leaving voicemails that ranged from apologies to more guilt-tripping. I didn't answer. Then Mark called me one night, saying my parents had shown up at his place looking for me. He told them I wasn't there, and they left, but he sounded worried. They looked desperate, man. I've never seen them like that. The next day, I got another letter. This one was from my mom. A long, rambling apology, but it still didn't feel genuine. It felt like she was more upset about losing control than actually understanding why I'd walked away. I didn't reply. But as the weeks went by, the letters kept coming. The messages, the attempts. And part of me started to feel tired. Not guilty. Just tired. I was exhausted from holding the line, from being so angry. So I wrote back. I got your letters. I'm not ready to forgive you. Maybe I never will. But I'm not angry anymore. I'm just done. I sent it. And then I turned off my phone, lay back on my bed, and just breathed. Maybe that's all I ever wanted, to be done.